So, first video of 2023. So let's start this off right, because I think this year there is going to be a general election. I cannot see how we make it to the end of 2023 without there being a general election. I really can't. And as you know, last year we really started looking at Conservative Home, primarily, first of all, to see what the Conservatives are thinking and what their sort of thought leaders are saying to their audience. And primarily, Conservative Home is a big, influential piece and puts out thought pieces and think pieces from Conservative MPs and think tanks to sort of really influence the Conservative Party membership. It is one of the most read pieces of news by the Conservative Party membership. They even sponsored the last Tory party conference. That's how big they are and influential they are within the wider sort of UK Conservative movement. And I thought it would be good to have a look at what their sense is on the new Conservative democratic, shall we say, organization, or as we'll call it, the CDO. And to be honest, from my point of view, this is the last thing the Conservative Party needs. The last thing it needs is another faction within the Conservative Party that is already far too full of factions, far too split along different ideological grounds. The last thing it needs is yet another faction sponsored with some serious money behind it, certainly from Lord Carruthers, who, by the way, if I generally was like a member of the Conservative Party, I'd be really annoyed at this, because Carruthers has basically come out and said he does not like the current Conservative Party, and he's more than happy to use his vast financial resources to change the party to how he wants it to be. So remember that this is meant to be, certainly from the CDO, a massive restructuring of the party, of the organization, to make it more democratic. But you have a guy who is using his vast financial resources to change the party and put it in a direction that he wants. Not what the members want, but what he wants. So if there are any members of the Conservative Party out there watching this, I'd generally love to know what you think about that, because I'll tell you now, being a member of the Labour Party, your card-carrying member, I don't have it close to me, obviously I'd show it you. If this was happening in my party and there was a millionaire coming in to influence the direction of policy and direction of the party, I'd be pretty annoyed. I'd be pretty angry at that. So if you are a member of the Conservative Party, I'd love to know what you think. But then again, we're going to go through on Conservative Home to see what they think about all this. Because, as I said before, the last thing the Conservative Party really needs is yet another faction of Conservative MPs fighting the other factions for dominance and the direction and even the future of the Conservative Party. So, before we go diving into this, like I say, first of all, Happy New Year to everyone. And of course, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, my one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, the Pony Club as well. And as always, like I say, thank you very much to everyone who does help and support the channel. Even if you do, just hit the like and share button. And also remember to ring the bell as well down below so you get notifications of when we go live and when we post a new video. So, as always, over we go today to Conservative Home, where they're discussing the Conservative and Democratic Organization, or as we said, the DCO. So the title is The Conservative and Democratic Organization, the Sensible Reformers or Rightist Beninites. Ooh. Ooh. So, constitutional debates are a difficult thing to conduct. in the proper spirit for a couple of reasons. First, the stakes are almost always high. You are, after all, talking about the very rules by which the game is played and opportunities to tilt the playing field around. That's very interesting. That, as we said before, Caritas has come out and said he does intend to do exactly that. So I suppose there is at least a bit of pushback against that notion, at least. But back to it. So, secondly, it can be very difficult to maintain the proper differentiation between question of means and the proper stuff of a constitution and the question of ends. The bloodless discussions about the best mechanisms for collective decision making and governance can get short circuited by more interesting debates about how to get the specific outcomes you want. So, that's quite interesting. Already, we are having the conservative side going, well, yeah, we don't really want that. And you've got to sort of acknowledge that that might be the case. And as we said at the beginning, Caritas has come out and said exactly that. That's what he intends to do. He intends to, if you've got a weighing scale, he literally intends to start putting his hand on the side he wants to weigh more and just start pushing it down. So at least there's a recognition that that can be a danger, and that is something to watch out for. So there is at least a good recognition for that. So I do have a bit of high hopes that maybe there might be pushback against this. But of course, I'll spoil it for you now. Recently, there was a poll done by Conservative Home polling the members. What do you think of the CDO? And it was a bit split. I think they won with about 30% said that they supported, and I think there was another, 25% said they didn't support this, but there was also a good majority as well that said, I think it was like 22% said that they didn't know because they didn't know enough about the CDO as an organization. But of course, the CDO now has a website and they are campaigning to get about this. So it will be interesting to see, certainly this year, how those numbers change and what the CDO does going forward to try and sort of rally the Conservatives around their banner to this constitutional change that, let's say, Caritas wants to make to the Conservative Party. Will he be successful? We don't know. Time will certainly tell this year. But back to it. So, as Zachary Spiro recently outlined, this is most obvious in Gordon Brown's proposals for overhauling the United Kingdom, which could simply bake Labour's principles and policy objectives into constitutional rights with all sorts of woeful implications. They don't. Again, why is that a bad thing, having constitutional rights? But okay, there you go. But yeah, question that definitely heavily. But anyway, back to it. So the tendency is just as obvious as the internal disputes of party policies. The campaign for the Labour Party democracy, an enthusiastic participant in the opposition debilitating civil war of the 1980s, made no secret that its various demands and changes to the party constitution were entirely in aid of bringing the whole organisation under left-wing control. No doubt Peter Caritas and Priti Patel would resent the new outfit, the Conservative and Democratic organisation, being compared to the Bennites of yesteryear. Yet that is exactly what they seek to do. He has said he wants to take control of the party. He wants to push it to more a far right agenda. That is his exact stated goal. I don't know whether he's going to be honest about that and mention that in this piece, but that would be quite interesting to see if he does. And I haven't heard Priti Patel's take on this, but I would certainly probably suggest she is certainly with Caritas on this as well. But whatever the high-minded concerns about the internal mechanisms of the party may have spurred them into action, there hasn't been any effect to hide the fact that there is also animated by a distaste for the left of the party, which apparently includes Rishi Sunak now. What a surprise. Like I say, Rishi Sunak doesn't have a left wing bone in his body, but you've seen people like Caridas and other people in the Conservative Party say that for some reason Sunak's a socialist. Yeah, no, sorry, there isn't a socialist bone in Rishi Sunak's or Jeremy Hunt's body. And of course, in general, enduring the loyalty to Boris Johnson in particular. Someone who, again, towards his end of his tenure as PM, was said by a lot of Conservative MPs, oh, well, that Boris Johnson, not a Conservative. I wonder if they're going to go after Boris Johnson, because that's also another one of their stated goals, to get rid of Conservative MPs who aren't Conservative. I wonder if they'll go after Boris Johnson. So, there's nothing wrong with being Heru Aldana, I have no idea, in a good cause if you think the former Prime Minister is such. But such a spirit of enterprise is likely to be built on the sort of broad consensus needed to actually secure the changes the COD is seeking, which will require a 2/3 vote of the National Convention. I am someone who is obviously was extremely critical of Carida's effort to shoehorn Johnson into the leadership ballot, but it is also worth the CDO remembering that before they cite the toppling of trust as evidence of the party's quote contempt for members, that our survey suggests that the grassroots thought it was right for to resign and would have then backed Sunak. Again, interesting to see that, as we've said before, there is a Conservative civil war coming. You can see that plainly in the way that he's writing about that paragraph there. This divisive stance is a shame because there is a strong case for overhauling the party's internal processes. Don Strafford, the co-founder of the long-standing Campaign for Conservative Democracy, and the existence of which lends the COD a slightly People's Front of Judea-ish edge, wrote on this site about how the members' vote for the leader was a consolation prize after the grassroots surrendered the meaningful control over the organization at large in the late 1990s. There was also scope for disagreement on whose changes should be. William Atkinson did suggest letting members elect a chair of the board, which controls the party funds and could ensure long-term investment in building the membership and developing promising seats, rather than throwing everything at the cycle's marginals. But of course, our panelists weren't keen. And of course, another big Conservative argument brewing, but there you go. Carruthers, instead, wants them to elect a party chairman, whose main role is setting election strategy. The utility of this is less obvious. The imperative of winning the next election dominates CCHQ's thinking as much as the members seem unlikely to ever elect a candidate who doesn't make that their priority. Which again is sort of true. It's what TCHQ's mandate is, win the next election. Although I think a lot of them, to be honest, have probably been heavily drinking this Christmas, thinking, what are we going to do? How are we going to pull this back? I don't see how they pull it back this year, to be honest. But they'll certainly give it a good try. As for the local control over candidate selections, it would certainly be good to see the end of CCHQ imposing one-member shortlists, or even expecting a local association to select a member that they only just met. But to be honest, I actually agree with them, because I think that is something, and certainly a discussion we are seeing in the Labour Party as well, about local candidates and having more the local sort of parties have more control over their candidate selection. I think that would be a fantastic thing to do. So it's kind of funny to see this exact same discussion happen in the Conservative Party as well. But there would also likely still need to be some capacity for the centre to find space for candidates who are, for want of a better term, government-minded. The accelerating tendency for hyper-local candidates and MP who act like councillors has not, so far, turned out to be a recipe for effective use of public office at a national level. Okay, so you're basically saying that people who step up from local government and have that mindset aren't prepared for being MPs. Well, at that point, my only retort to that would be your CCHQ's choice to train MPs. I mean, I know in the Labour Party they have training sessions to train people to be MPs, to stand up, what their responsibilities are and how they're going to do it. I'm very shocked if that is not at least similar the case in the Conservative Party, but there you go. Well, we should also be wary of moves to replace the representative with direct democracy inside of the party. The CDO's proposal is to replace the National Convention with a general meeting and could easily end up favouring the time-rich and highly engaged few over the general membership. I mean, like Carruthers, but you also forget, I think, not only time-rich, but asset-rich, who could certainly dominate that in their favour. Finally, we should also make sure that any changes are not conducted in the Benonite spirit. As I argued during the leadership contests, there are hard times to the proper role of party democracy in a representative democracy. A party exercising democratic control who nominates it for parliament is all very well. But once elected, those people are representatives, not delegates. I'm glad that he actually acknowledges that, because that's something that a lot of people don't really tend to accept. Once you are elected, you are not technically just a representative of the Labour Party. You are a representative of your local constituency and the people who put you there. Now, you just also happen to have stood on that Labour platform, hence why the people sort of voted for you to get that platform done. You aren't a delegate of your political party. Hence why we've seen a lot of this year, and certainly a lot of the criticisms that we saw last year, shall we say, of course, were the Conservatives putting party before country. And that is what we've seen a lot last year. But back to it. So, the idea that members should be able to overrule Conservative MPs on questions of confidence in the Prime Minister previously is floated by some now involved in the CDO should be rejected in the strongest terms possible. Alas, the CDO website lists amongst their aims of reaching and, quote, reinforcing the party membership's democratic right to choose the party leader. My emphasis, their capitals. For those who defend MPs' proper independence in a parliamentary democracy, it may be time to do a little reading. Again, I'm highly amused he doesn't mention their organization's other goals. And I'll mention that in particular, as we mentioned it at the start. I think if you were going to talk about this, you would at least mention the fact that Carruthers and Patel, and even again on their website, says that it wants to go after what they see as Conservative MPs who aren't Conservative, basically trying to take out the opposition. And that spells a lot of trouble. If you think the upcoming Conservative civil wars are going to be bad, throwing these guys gain any significant power this year is going to cause those civil wars to explode massively, because now you are going to see accusations thrown out of you're not conservative or you're not conservative enough. The purest element in this is going to be absolutely fantastic to watch and see the Conservative Party literally tear themselves to shreds over this. So if the CDO does gain any significant traction, any significant following, and I think potentially it does, Carruthers is a massive sort of donor in the Conservative Party, so I think he will have a lot of influence. We don't know how many MPs he has actually swayed over to his side, let alone actually is there a base in the non-parliamentary party of support for them. We don't know. We'll certainly find out this year, because I heavily suspect at some point this year we will also see the resurrection of of Johnson, or as we called it today on the Good Morning Walk. You can tell I'm doing this last year. What is it? To Johnson 3.0, the re-Johnsoning. You know, yeah, I would not be surprised to see the CDO heavily involved in trying to get Boris Johnson put back in at some point this year. I suspect highly, probably around the May local elections. So, as I believe, I can't remember which character actually said it in Game of Thrones. I think it said multiple times. There are many characters. I wish the CDO well in the wars to come, because oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, are there wars about to erupt in the Conservative Party? Yes. So, as always, guys, thank you very much for watching, and of course, thank you very much for the support you guys show. Like I say, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button, and of course, please do remember to ring the bell as well, so you get notifications when we go live or we drop a new video. No links down below. Patreon page, YouTube thank you button, buy me a coffee, all that good stuff down below. So as always, guys, thank you very much for watching, and of course, we'll see you all next time.